guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Florian, good to see you. And today we're talking about DaVinci Resolve and how to get started. DaVinci is a very powerful software and it is literally absolutely for free. So head over to the Google, type in DaVinci Resolve and head to the website, click the download button and make sure you download DaVinci Resolve 16. And not the studio version. The studio version you need to pay for it like around £300. But the non-studio version is absolutely fine and is doing a great job. So after you install DaVinci Resolve, I'm going to talk you through how to get started. It is meant to be a very simple basic tutorial how to get started with DaVinci Resolve. If you don't want to spend like £300 for Final Cut Pro, or you want to pay a yearly subscription like Adobe Premiere Pro. So DaVinci Resolve is definitely a good option and it is literally for free. Hey! What you can say? So it is for free, as mentioned. Yes, you might miss out on a few special effects or a few tweaks you can use in a studio version compared to the non-studio version, but generally speaking, it is a very powerful tool, guys. And for the free, full or almost full editing software, you can't complain really. So let's open up DaVinci Resolve first, and then we go from there. It might be a bit overwhelming at the first time you open DaVinci Resolve because it's completely new for you. And I felt the same. I was a bit overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do and I just walked my way through really. And then step by step, little by little, and we can do it together. So DaVinci Resolve takes a few seconds to upload, and then basically you come to the first interface of DaVinci Resolve, where you can basically create your project, what you want to do and how you want to do it. So basically you can go either to Untitled Project and you hit Untitled Project, or double click Untitled Project and it brings you straight into the cut page. What I like to do is, if we're going back, it's very simple. You just hit the project manager on the right hand side and you come basically back to your first window where we started. I like to hit the new project button here at the bottom. And then you can basically name your title already. So let's say tutorial, and then you hit create. And then it brings you basically exactly back to the same page as we started, as we hit the Untitled Project. The only difference is that your project got a title already. So you got a name for your project already. So what I like to do is to make sure that my settings are right. So first we should make sure that our settings are right, which you can do here on the right hand side corner. You got the project settings button which you can click, and then it gives you basically your format in how the timeline resolution is, like in 1920 to 1080 HD for 1920 by 1080 processing, which format you want to use, the square one, 16:9, cinema scope, or your timeline frame rate 24 frames per second, what we're gonna do right now. Your playback frame rate would be 24 seconds as well in this case. Video monitoring, you got a lot of different settings here as well, such as like image scaling, color management, general options, camera raw, capture and playback, subtitles, fairlight. But we're coming back to this at another time, guys. We just literally get you started, how to get started and how to make a most as a beginner out of DaVinci Resolve. So basically we leave all settings. Usually when you open a new timeline, it should be set automatically to 24 frames per second, which we want to use. So basically if you would change anything, you can hit the save button or the cancel button, depends on if you change something. In our case we just hit the cancel button. So we're back on our cut page. So basically when you open DaVinci Resolve, it brings you to your cut page, and on the other sides of a cut page you got your interfaces of media pool, your cut page, your edit page, your fusion page, your color page, your fairlight and your deliver page. We're going back to the media page where we import our footage. So basically, because I do run my footage over external hard drive, I got my hard drive popping up here where I basically can import my footage. My hard drive is currently off, so I can't show you actually the footage. But let's say you would have your footage on a hard drive you run separately, or external hard drive. You could add a new location, and then you can find your hard drive or your library, your folder, and you can add your folder to the hard drive list or where your data is stored. So basically that's your main page you're coming to. You got your no clips and media pool currently, nothing is imported. So there are a few several ways to do so. You could hit your main drive, open your main drive, click on your folder where you saved your data, and then you click import or open, and it will pop up here in a window. In our case, because I'm using a clip I use as an example right now, I hit file and then I go on import file, import media, and it brings you basically to your interface where you can choose your footage from. In this case we're using my intro. Click open and it imports straight away my import to the bottom line. So there are two ways basically you could cut and edit your footage. You can go to the cut page and crop your footage and pull it into the timeline, and then you literally can cut your footage how you want it in your cut page. Personally speaking, what I would do is I go straight to the edit page, which seems currently a bit overwhelming, but it's pretty straightforward actually. So you got your media pool here on the left hand side top. You got your media pool, you got your effects library, your edit index, your sound library. We're just going for right now just with the media pool. Your footage will pop up here. So basically the easiest way is literally you could crop your footage, pull it in a timeline, and you got your footage in a timeline. And then you hit space and it would start your footage. You hit space again and it stops your footage. As soon as you imported your footage down to the timeline, it pops up with your video adjustments you could do, such as like you can zoom in or you can zoom out, you can move a position around, you can rotation your footage if you want, you can change your anchor point, you can pinch it, you can draw it, you can even flip it if you want. So it's basically the mirror effect, or you can flip it upside down. If you want to get rid of your adjustments you did, just hit the circle arrow here at the end and it basically puts your footage back to the original footage how we imported it. It is pretty straightforward actually. So basically as soon as you got your footage imported into your timeline, you got several ways. You got the arrow here on top, which is a selection mode A. So if you click your footage, you can move it around, you can break it down, you can move it up so that you get the second video, or you can move it down back to your first video. If you would go onto the blade mode, it's your blade mode or your cut tool. You can also hit A and B on your keyboards, which A is your arrow mode so that you can move your footage. B is basically your blades that you could cut your footage as much as you want, as you want it. Pretty straightforward. A lot of things might popping up here on the left hand side, such as your video transitions, audio transitions, titles, where you could say, okay, I want a title above my video. You can pull it on top of your first video. It will add automatically a second video to it. And then you can click your text title, and you could say here in the right hand side text window, tutorial, and it will add a text onto your video. You could hit now space and it plays your text as long as you want to over your footage. You can crop your footage, move it together, it gets smaller, move it, and it will play longer. If you click your footage or your text and you just hit back, it will delete your text title. So, and then you got a few other effects, generators, etc., which will be all pop up here in the left hand side. Under effects, you got adjustment clips, fusion composition, open effects, like you could add some blur, directional blur, Gaussian blur, lens blur, a lot of different effects you can add. You will miss out on a few effects if you choose to work with the free DaVinci Resolve version rather than the studio version. But personally speaking, so far I'm using DaVinci Resolve maybe a year. I didn't miss on much, and I'm really grateful for that. DaVinci is a very powerful tool. It gives you a lot of program for no money, which is absolutely incredible. A lot of other programs you might need to do a trial shift and you need to buy it, or when you exported it you have for overwriting when you export your footage which says, I don't know, the company's name, which you can't delete. So DaVinci Resolve is a very powerful tool. Let's jump quickly back to the right hand side window here, where if you click one of your videos, make sure your red line is above the videos when you do adjustments, because let's say the red line would be here and you click this video and you do adjustments, you don't see them. So always make sure when you edit a clip that your red line is above the clip you added, otherwise you won't see any adjustments, and then when you do a playback you might be surprised why the edits are completely somewhere else and not in a clip you wanted to. So as we said, you can do quite a lot here. You got like transform, where you can say, as we said, like you can zoom out, you can zoom in, you can flip it even upside down. Just hit the arrow, circle arrow keys on the right hand side if you want to delete your edit. You can go down, you got the cropping tool where you can say, okay, I just want to crop it a bit, left, right, top, bottom, and you literally crop your footage. Let's delete this again, guys. Then you got the dynamic zoom as well you could use, which zooms your footage in. Stabilization might be very important when you shot something handheld, you didn't have any stabilization, such a gimbal or any stabilized lenses, in-body stabilization. You could use the stabilization and it does a good job. I don't use it as much as I thought I would, but if you need it, it's a very powerful tool. It tries to balance out your image, and you need to play around with the settings a bit to find the right strength for the scene you try to stabilize. You got the retime scaling and the lens correction as well. So if you're going back down to your timeline, basically you got a few more options here. The important options right now, just to get started, is probably your ruler here, where you can change your zoom in and zoom out in your timeline, but also you got the plus minus buttons here where you can literally zoom in and zoom out, and you can see the whole timeline at some point when you zoom far enough out. Your sound, you can switch on and off here if you got sound with your video, and then hit the B if you want to cut it, hit the A if you want to move it. One thing what might be important, what I did struggle to figure out as well at the very first beginning, if I say, okay, I wanted to move two clips around, I cropped the clip and I moved it over, and it did overwrite my footage. So there's a little trick. If you hit Shift, Command, and then you crop your clip, and then you move it, oh, 1 second. Yeah, Shift, Command, guys, and then you can move your clip, and it will literally push the other clip underneath to the side. So the clip you move won't overwrite the footage. So hit Shift Command, click your footage, move it left or right, and it will move the footage which was originally underneath this footage you moved to the side. So you won't overwrite any footage, which is perhaps maybe a bit more complicated than in other programs, because I've been struggling at the very first beginning as well, and I just moved it over and I thought, oh, where's my footage actually gone? So just hit Shift Command and you actually can move your footage around without overwriting footage. So Pretty straightforward, guys. It's literally how to get started. Pull your footage into the timeline. A, to select a clip and move it around. Hit B if you want to cut it, or spacebar to start playing it, spacebar to stop it. If we would go to the another page, such as like Fusion page, is where you can do all the special effects. You can do a Fusion clip, but we're going another day into this. Your color page is pretty straightforward as well. You got all your color wheels down here. Basically your primary wheels, your primary bars, and your log wheels. Which lift is basically your shadows, gamma is basically your midtones, and gain is basically your highlights. And offset is basically the overall image where you adjust everything at the same time. You got your LUTs here, you got your media pool here, you got your timeline here. So LUTs, media pool, and timeline. For now we stick to media pool so that you can see your clips and your current footage. Your footage you cut and what is actually currently in your timeline is displayed here straight underneath and above your primary wheels or above your adjustment wheels. So you got also a lot of other tools such as like curves. You can correct your footage a bit with and give it color and contrast. You got so many additional windows such as like U versus U, U versus saturation, U versus luminance. Then you got luminance versus saturation. You got saturation versus saturation. DaVinci Resolve was meant to be for professional color grading at first, but they kept adding features to the program, basically that you got the full package. You can add it F-Log or however they called it with different camera brands. So DaVinci Resolve is a very powerful tool. You got also like a lot of other settings here on the side. You can see your waveforms and vector scope, your parade, histogram, but that's all for another time. Basically, you got the sound or Fairlight page where you just work on your sound, which is great. Like not many programs actually giving you this much choice to work with your sound as well, if you don't need to buy like an additional program which is just based off sound management. On your deliver page is basically where you deliver your final render of your film. Let's say you've done all your clippings, you've done all your clips, you cut them, you color grade them, and you're basically ready to render your project. You got several options. You got a few you got a custom page, but also you got already presets here on top, such as like for YouTube, Vimeo, ProRes, H264, H265, etc, etc. There are so many render settings, presets you could use if you want to. Otherwise it's pretty straightforward. You got your file name, you title your file name such as like tutorial, and then you choose your location where you want to render it out. We do it now to downloads, okay. And then usually for now, leave the settings how they are. They're doing a great job and you're ready to go. You can render out just a selection of your clips if you want. So make sure if you go on render and you want to render in and out, and you want to, let's say, render just the first 20 seconds, you hit in, go to the end of a clip where you want to finish it, hit O, and it will just render the first 20 seconds. To delete the selection and you want to render your whole timeline, just make sure you're set on entire timeline and you're good to go. You add to render queue and you start render and it will render. It gives you a roughly time how long it will take until your project is rendered. It gives you a name, it gives you the location, and it says completed in 3 seconds. So guys, it is very straightforward. It is a very powerful tool. Let's do it a quick one again, and then we're both at the same page, and then you guys gonna be quicker pro in DaVinci Resolve. So go to the edit page. Let's delete quickly all my footage, what I've been messing around with. So that's your edit page. You crop your footage, put it in your timeline. If it pops up here, let's say it pops up on your right hand side and you got a massive gap between the beginning and the end, just click the empty space. It will gray up a bit, hit your back button, and your footage get moved to the beginning of the timeline. And then, as we said, your arrow A key to select your footage to move it around, your B, your blade for cutting. You could also crop the footage, move over the edge, and those two little arrows will appear, and then click, and then you could move it as well. And then, yeah, that's it. This is how easy it can be. You just pull your timeline in, you cut, you edit, you can zoom in and out how you need to or want to be, and then your audio is straight underneath. Your audio, if you recorded a film including audio, your audio is linked to the footage. So if you wanted to, let's say, make your audio external from your footage you recorded, or not linked to the footage you recorded, you just hit right hand side mouse click, link clips, click into an empty space, and then basically your footage would be separate from each other, or your sound is separate from your footage. And then you can move it around how you want it. If you want to have it back together, just mark both of them, hit link clip, and then they are back together. However, make sure that both matching up together before you link them together, otherwise the sound might be a bit off from your actual footage. As you can tell, guys, it is a very powerful tool, and you got a lot of additional features which you perhaps don't get in other programs. And for a free program, you can't complain at all. And I still got a lot to figure out in this program as well. So it's gonna take some time to get used to it. So if you got any questions, guys, leave them down in the comments. Otherwise, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.